Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Lord of the Rings LCG Progression series. Today's video is a deck analysis of the Rohan Secrecy deck that I've been using for the Hobbit quests. And I've started recording videos for the Against the Shadow cycle as well, and the deck is performing very well against those quests. So I think it's worth going over what cards are included in this deck. And also, this will be a buying guide. When I was in college and younger and playing CCGs, I often couldn't buy all the cards I wanted, and so when I saw a deck that I wanted to play, I would make substitutions, trying to retain the essence of the deck. And so this guide will help players who are wanting to play the deck but maybe don't have all the APs, or wondering which cards are essential and which cards you can perhaps do without and still retain the essence of the deck. So that will be the purpose of this guide. So let's get started. First of all, mulliganing. What you're looking for in the opening hand is Timely Aid. I never throw away a hand with Timely Aid in it. The card is so strong, turn one, and gets a lot weaker later. Resourceful, I will usually not throw away a hand with Resourceful in it, although if I have Resourceful and nothing to spend the resources on, like Resourceful and no minions, I'll throw the hand away. But if there's Resourceful and some minions, I'll keep that hand. Steward of Gondor, same story. Steward of Gondor and minions, I'll keep that hand. A very good tail along with two minions, or sometimes one minion, I'll keep that hand. A very good tail and no minions, I don't keep. So a very good tail, Steward, Resourceful, I will keep if there are one or two minions at least. Not minions, allies in the hand. But if there aren't, I'll let it go. Or if there's just one 2-cost ally, sometimes I'll let it go. I'm really looking for a 3-cost ally with a very good tail in particular, or Steward or Resourceful, because you just want something to use the resources on, or you want a ally, at least one, and then maybe you can draw into a second, which will allow you to get two more 3-cost allies, or a 3-cost and a 2-cost, or a Gandalf from the top of your deck. So that's how I'm mulliganing. If I don't have a very good tail, Steward, Resourceful, or Sneak Attack, or Timely Aid in the hand, I'm not keeping it under really any circumstance. From there, what you're looking to do is get out your allies as quickly as possible, and then depending on which quest you're at, you aim for defeating the most progress stage of the quest stage that requires the most questing power with astonishing speed. And sometimes you can defeat quests very quickly, as you've seen in the videos that I've done. Let's go over the cards which require specific APs. And we'll talk about how essential or not essential they are to the deck, and what substitutions could possibly be made if you don't have that specific AP. Because you got a card like Awen, which is from Conflict at the Carrock, and there are no other Conflict at the Carrock cards in the deck, and you may be wondering, can I not play this deck if I don't have Conflict at the Carrock? So we're going to go over each of the cards that require an AP and talk about how essential or non-essential they are to the deck and what their role in the deck is. So the first one will be Awen from Watcher in the Water. She is the only Watcher in the Water card in the deck. In this deck, she's a good card, but not an essential card. 2 shields is great for siege questing in Battle of the Five Armies. The 2 questing power for 2 cost is good. What card she can be substituted for, I'll say that. And so if I did not have Awen, what I would likely do is run something like maybe Boffer would be perfectly acceptable if you have the Red Horn Gate but you don't have Watcher in the Water. You could Yeah, there's not really another good card besides Boffer. Boffer would be a perfectly acceptable substitution. If I didn't have Arwen, I would certainly consider Northern Tracker. It's much more expensive, but it's also a strong card. And Arwen's not a Rohan ally, so Northern Tracker would be a perfectly acceptable substitute from the core set. That's pretty much all of the spirit allies you could substitute. You could also swap in a leadership ally. There's not a lot of good leadership allies. Aristor can be good in this deck from the Long Dark if you have that one. If you've bought, obviously you'll have On the Doorstep because of this is the quests. Well, if you're looking to play the Hobbit quest, you'll have On the Doorstep. If you're not looking to, then you may not. But if you do have Glowin, you can sub him in. Just looking for really any 2 willpower ally that's 2 or 3 cost. You can swap in for Arwen. And you'll get a slight reduction in the dex power because Arwen is a quality ally, and the shields that she grants to Frodo can matter sometimes. But honestly, you won't get a significant reduction, and you'll still retain the essence of the deck if you don't have Arwen from Watcher in the Water. Conflict at the Karak Aomen. So the problem with swapping out Rohan allies is that you lose astonishing speed power. So you could probably swap Aomen for Elfhelm, perhaps, if you have the Dead Marshes but not Conflict at the Karak. We don't really use Aomen's ability really ever. If Aomen ever does leave play, I guarantee in my videos I forgot to use his ability because it just doesn't enter my mind most of the time. You could certainly try Westfold Horsebreaker from the Hunt for Gollum if you have that, but not Conflict at the Karak. But if you start getting into like swapping out multiple Rohan allies, you're going to have problems. Because Astonishing Speed is very important, and Astonishing Speed relies on Rohan characters, and these are all the best Rohan allies in my opinion. Aomend Escort from Edoras, Rider of the Mark, Rittermark's Finest, and West Road Traveler, and unfortunately they're all from different APs. Aomend's from Conflict at the Karak, Journey to Rosgobel, Road to Rivendell, Hills of Evanwheel, and Return to Mirkwood. You could swap out any one of them, and the cards you would swap in would be Westfold Horsebreaker. That's a perfectly fine Rohan ally. And perhaps Elfhelm. He's a little expensive, though. You find him cumbersome to use compared to the others who are all 2 or 3, but you could use him from the Dead Marshes. Westfold Horsebreaker is also from Hunt for Gollum, so if you have Hunt for Gollum, you could easily, that would be the first card I would swap in for one of the Rohan allies. And then after that, maybe Elfhelm, but I'd consider Elfhelm a downgrade. Arwen, easy to swap out. The Rohan allies, not so much. Not so much, but you could easily swap in Westfold Horsebreaker for one of them if you don't have one of these APs. Faramir is absolutely vital to the deck. Under no circumstances can you swap him out, but he is a core card. Feely and Keely from Overhill and Underhill are absolutely essential because they're so good with a very good tail. That's why they're in the deck. They don't synchronize with Rohan, but they are excellent, very good tail targets. And otherwise we just use them as meat shields or for a little questing power. 3 cost for 2/2 stats is pretty good. I like that a lot. So even without any dwarves in the deck, they're good. And they can't be swapped out, really. Any one of the Rohan allies could be for Westfold Horsebreaker. Maybe 2 for Westfold and Elfhelm. Arwen can definitely be swapped out for really any 2 questing power ally. But Keely and Feely cannot. Faramir and Gandalf cannot. And you can't swap out too many of the Rohan allies, and you can't really swap them out for non-Rohan allies due to astonishing speed. Light of the Valinor and Glorfindel from Foundations of Stone, absolutely essential, and the reason is there's no other hero at 5 threat. Glorfindel's the lowest in the game. He's got to be in there. No way around it. So Light of the Valinor and Glorfindel, if you don't have them, you cannot play this deck as it is designed to be played, which is to use Timely Aid and Resourceful at 20 threat. Frodo Baggins from Conflict at the Carrick. Oh, there is 2 Conflict at the Carrick cards. Well, Frodo's an amazing hero. Love that guy. And at threat 7, is there another spirit? Could you use Eleanor instead of Frodo? You'd see a significant reduction in the deck's viability. I think Frodo is irreplaceable because of his ability to convert attacks into threat. We start at low threat. His ability is so good and so versatile. I don't think you can swap him out. I think you have to have Frodo from Conflict at the Carrick, and if you have Frodo, then you have Awen as well. So I should have talked about Frodo first, but yeah, these 2 are absolutely essential. Theodred is from the core set, so we're not going to really go into whether you could swap him out, but if you were interested in doing it, it's not possible because currently he's the only 8 threat leadership hero. So it's got to be him. And we're just kind of lucky that he happens to be pretty good, generating resources every turn. And he's got 2 attack. But he's primarily in here because he's 8 threat. And there's no other 8 threat hero available at this time. There's going to be soon, but right now there isn't. No other 8 threat leadership hero. Resourceful from the Watcher in the Water. Okay, so that's 2 Watcher in the Water cards. It could be swapped out. Timely Aid cannot. You could swap out both Resourceful and Awen. What would you put in instead of Resourceful? Well, what would be good here? I would think that... So the role that it plays is resource generation, and there's not an acceptable substitute that generates resources. It's an above average card. It can make a difference. It doesn't win games. I'd probably just put in something like Unexpected Courage. Help you generate more questing power, give you versatility in what you can do. Unexpected Courage isn't that good because Light of the Valinor already does that for Glorfindel. We don't usually need 2 actions on Theodred. We don't usually need 2 actions on Frodo. He already has 2 actions because he can take an attack undefended and quest. So I don't know that any of these attachments, maybe Ancient Matham if you have Journey to Rosgobel. Maybe a Test of Will would be good from the core set. Could make a case for Elrond's Council to help keep the threat down from Watcher. Well, that's from Watcher in the Water as well. Yeah, that's probably about it. So maybe a Test of Will is what I would swap in for Resourceful if I didn't have Watcher in the Water. Possibly Ancient Matham. Ancient Matham gives a different kind of resources, which is card draw. Could be, that'd probably be the first thing I'd swap in, and then a Test of Will if I didn't have Resourceful or Arwen from Watcher in the Water. Steward of Gondor is a core card. It's been in just about every deck I've ever designed. Can't be swapped out. Very good tail is from Overhill and Underhill, and it cannot be swapped out. You're gonna have to have Overhill and Underhill if you want to play this. Astonishing Speed is from Return to Mirkwood. It is not essential. You can play a variant of this deck that doesn't have it, which I'll show in just a moment. Sneak Attack is from core, Galadrim's Greetings from core, and Timely Aid is from Redhorn Gate, and that is absolutely essential as well. Which means if you've got that, then you've got... Which one of these was from Redhorn Gate? I forgot. One of them was, right? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing else from Redhorn Gate. But anyway, yeah, you gotta have Timely Aid to play this. So, no Timely Aid, no luck. Now, I'm going to look at the variant that I used for the Battle of 5 Armies, which removes the Rohan package and is probably the easier variant to make if you want, and it's still very powerful. It's preferable on some quests that don't require a sprint in them at all, in terms of questing. So we already talked about, but yeah, you remove the Rohan package. You still need Conflict at the Carrack with Frodo, and I mean, you still need Foundations of Stone. But Bjorn is from the core set. Eristor is not essential. You could swap any 2 spirit, 2 willpower ally in. He's a nice card sometimes. He's not essential. So interchangeable. Gildor from Hills of Emyn is pretty important in this variant, being a 3/2/3 statted hero ally. So I would consider him important in this deck, but if there's other acceptable allies that have high stats, you could use one of those. I don't know if there are, though. I mean, Brock, I suppose, could be used in place of Gildor. Brock Iron Fist, he's not great, but he's got 2/2, 1/4. He'd be acceptable if you didn't have Hills of Emyn and you wanted to play this particular variant. Instead of Gildor, you could swap in Brock. Keely, need him. Rider of the Mark is not essential in this variant. You could use any 2 willpower ally, really. I actually didn't even really think about whether Rider of the Mark should be in here or if it should be another ally. There's others I could make a case for. Longbeard Elder, perhaps, from Foundations of Stone. Could be better than Rider of the Mark in that variant. Yeah, I don't know if any of these... I already have Boffer, right, from Redhorn Gate, but you already need Timely Aid from Redhorn Gate, so... This variant is probably the easier to make. Any 2 willpower ally will work there. And also there. But if you have Conflict at the Carrack, you've got Eomund. Any 2 willpower ally will work to swap out with any of these cards, except for Gildor. He really needs a high stat swap. If you don't have Hills of Emyn so probably Brock. And then what I said about these other cards still applies. So, hopefully that helps if you're thinking about making the deck. Gotta have Redhorn Gate. Gotta have Overhill and Underhill. For this particular variant, that's really all you have to have, in addition to the core set. And Foundations of Stone and Conflict at the Carrack. So that's a few. 4 APs, I think, will make this deck. And then the rest you can swap out as appropriate based on what you have or don't have. For this variant, with the Astonishing Speed, you gotta have Return to Mirkwood. Gotta have Hills of Emyn gotta have Road to Rivendell. Journey to Rosgobel. Conflict at the Carrack. Foundations of Stone. And Overhill and Underhill, so that's a lot. It's the harder variant to build. This one's easier, nearly as powerful, and you don't need as much. So hopefully that helps anybody who's thinking about building the deck, wondering what's needed and what's not needed, and perhaps the use for some of the cards. So thanks for watching.